Chapter 8. Greek beliefs. You have learned that ancient Greeks formed city-states. These are independent states made up of a city and the land that surrounds it. Although city-states separated Greece politically, the Greek people were united by a common culture. They spoke the Greek language. They shared many beliefs and customs. The Greek people also believed that of the same myths or traditional stories about gods and heroes. Greek myths expressed the religious beliefs of ancient Greeks. Who were the Greek gods? Like other people of the ancient world, Greeks believed in gods and goddesses. The Greeks, however, did not think of their gods as all-powerful beings. In Greek myths, the gods have great powers, but they also look and act like human beings. In Greek mythology, they marry and have children. At times, they act like children playing tricks on each other, because the gods showed human qualities. The Greek people did not fear them. Greeks believed that 12 most important gods and goddesses lived on Mount Olympus, Greece's highest mountain. The gate of clouds protected Olympus, and the gods could come and go as they pleased, but the humans were stopped from entering through the gates of clouds. Zeus was the king of the Olympian gods, while Athena was the goddess of wisdom and crafts. Apollo worshipped the sun and poetry. People looked up Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Two fierce gods were Ares, the god of war, and Poseidon, the god of seas and earthquakes. All Greeks worshipped Zeus as their chief god. Each city-state also chose one god or goddess as its protector. To win the favor of their god, the people of the city-state performed rituals. A ritual is an action that is part of a religious ceremony. The people worshiped the god in the temples and at home. They prayed and offered gifts to the gods. And through these rituals, the Greeks hoped that the god would reward them. Festivals honoring the gods and goddesses were an important part of Greek life. Each city-state scheduled public feasts and sacrifices. Every 4 years, Greek athletes took part in the athletic competitions. These games were for the greater glory of Zeus. They were held at the city of Olympia and were called the Olympic Games. Beginning in 776 BC, the ancient Olympic Games took place for more than 1,000 years. The first modern Olympics were held in 1896 in Athens. The Greeks believed that their gods would be pleased if people showed skill in the arts and in athletic or in thinking. Greek oracles. The Greeks believed that each person had a fate or destiny. Certain events were going to take place no matter what they did. They also believed in prophecy or a prediction about the future. The Greeks believed that gods gave prophecies to warn people about the future in time to change it. To find out about the future, many Greeks visited an oracle. This was a sacred shrine where a priest or priestess spoke for a god. The most famous was the oracle at the temple of Apollo at Delphi. The oracle chamber was deep inside the temple. The room had an opening in the floor where volcanic smoke hissed from a crack in the earth. There sat a priestess sat and sat on a stool and listened to questions. The priest translated her answers. State leaders or the messengers traveled to Delphi to ask advice from the oracle of Apollo. Epics and fables. Greek poems and stories are some of the oldest literature in Western civilization. For hundreds of years, Europeans and Americans used ancient Greek works as models for writing their own literature. England's William Shakespeare is an example. He borrowed Greek plots and settings for many of his dramas, and he organized his plays similarly to the way Greek dramas were organized. The first Greek stories were epics. Two great epics of ancient Greece were the Iliad and the Odyssey. The poet Homer composed them during 700 BCs. Homer based these epics on stories about war between Greece and the city of Troy. Troy existed in the area that is today northwestern Turkey. The Trojan horse. In the Iliad, a prince of Troy falls in love with Helen, the wife of a Greek king, and kidnaps her. The kidnapping angers the Greeks, who attack Troy in revenge. The Greeks, however, cannot break through the thick walls surrounding the city. In order to get in the city, the Greeks trick the Trojans and construct a huge, hollow wooden horse. The finest Greek soldiers hid inside of the horse. All the Greek soldiers board ships and sail away. The Trojans think they have won the war and that the horse is a victory prize for the Greeks. The Trojans roll the giant horse into the city, and that night, the Greeks creep out of the horse and open the city gates, and they allow the rest of the Greek army, who have sailed back to Troy after dark, to re-enter the city. The Greeks then capture the city and rescue Helen and take her home. The Odyssey tells the story of Odysseus, a Greek hero of the Trojan War. It describes a long trip home after the fall of Troy. He faces storms and monsters and witches along the way. Odysseus finally returns to his wife, and according to the poem, it takes Odysseus 10 years to accomplish his arrival in Greece. Today, people use the word Odyssey as a word taken from his name to describe a long, exciting journey. Greeks believed that the Iliad and the Odyssey were more than stories. They looked on the epics as real history. These poems gave the Greeks an ideal past with a cast of heroes. One Athenian wrote, "My father, in his plans to make a good man, compelled me to learn the whole of Homer's poems." Homer's stories taught courage and honor. They also taught about that it was important to be loyal to your friends and value the relationship between husband and wife. The stories showed heroes striving to be the best they could be. Heroes fought to protect their honor and their family's honor. Heroes became role models for Greek boys. Aesop's Fables. Have you heard the story of the fox and the grapes? Or the boy who cried wolf? These stories have traditionally been credited to a man named Aesop. He is supposed to have lived and told stories around 550 BC. Historians now know that Aesop probably never existed. However, the stories he is supposed to have told certainly do exist. They are known as Aesop's Fables. A fable is a short tale that teaches a lesson. In most of Aesop's fables, animals speak and act like people. These stories are often funny and show human weakness and strength. Each fable ends with a moral or useful truth. One of Aesop's fables is the hare and the tortoise. In this fable, a slow-moving tortoise or turtle and a speedy hare or rabbit race each other. Soon the hare is far ahead. Sure of victory, the hare stops to take a nap, and meanwhile the turtle keeps moving slowly. He passes the sleeping rabbit and wins the race. The moral of the story is the slow and steady win the race. Many phrases from Aesop's fables are still in use, including, "It is easy to dislike something you cannot have," and "Appearances can be deceiving." Aesop's fables were told during a time that is known as the Golden Age of Greece. During this period, art, philosophy, architecture, and literature flourished. For 200 years, Aesop's fables were part of Greek oral tradition. This means the stories were passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth. It took many years before the tales were written down, and since then, Aesop's fables have been translated into many languages. They are still read by people around the world today. The impact of Greek drama. Ancient Greeks created and performed the first dramas. A drama is a story told mainly through the words and actions of a cast of characters. A drama is performed by actors. In ancient Greece, they were performed on stage. Many of today's movies, plays, and television shows are dramas. Think about your favorite movie. How would you describe it? Is it humorous? Is it a serious story? Greek drama can be divided into two categories, tragedy and comedy. Tragedy, the main character struggles to overcome hardships but does not succeed. And as a result, the story has a tragic or unhappy ending. The earliest Greek plays were tragedies. Later, the Greeks also wrote comedies. In a comedy, the story ends happily. Today, the word comedy means a story filled with humor. During the 5th century, 4 writers emerged as the greatest Greek dramatists or writers. I'm not really sure about this word. We'll just skip this. Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes. These 4 dramatists wrote about their plays during the Golden Age of Greece, which was from about 500 to 350 BC. Achilles was the earliest Greek dramatist. One of his dramas is a set of 3 plays called the Aristophus. This drama tells about a Greek king's return from the Trojan War and the troubles that strike his family. This is a story about revenge and murder, and it shows how one evil action can lead to another. Although the play ends tragically, good triumphs over evil in the end. Sophocles was a great Athenian writer, and in his play, Sophocles accepted suffering as a real part of life. He also stressed courage and understanding. In his plays, Antigone, Sophocles questions whether it is better to obey orders or to do what one believes to be right. Another leading Greek dramatist, Euripides, unlike the other 2, Euripides wrote about ordinary human beings being in realistic situations. His plays often show the suffering caused by war. In theaters today, the actors include men, women, and children. In ancient Greece, however, only men could be actors. Even female characters were played by male actors. The most famous of Greek comedies was Aristophanes. His works poked fun at leaders and issues of the day, and he encouraged people to think and laugh. Many of Aristophanes' comedies included jokes, just as television comedy shows do today. How Greek drama developed. Drama was much more than entertainment for people of ancient Greeks. It was part of religious festivals and a way to show loyalty to their city-state. In early Greek drama, a group of performers called a chorus presented the story through singing and dancing. Later, the dramas used several actors on stage. Then stories were recreated using actions and conflicts among characters. Greek art and architecture. The ancient Greeks excelled in the arts and architecture, and they created works that expressed ideals of reason and balance of harmony. The characteristics of Greek art became the artistic style that we now call classical. Classical Greek art set standards of beauty that people still admire today. The Greeks constructed beautiful buildings, and every Greek city-state had a temple dedication to a god or goddess. Temples such as the Parthenon included a central room that housed a statue of gods. Large and graceful columns, supported many Greek buildings. Some famous buildings in Washington, D.C., such as the White House and the Capitol, have Greek columns. Sculpture decorated many Greek temples. The human body was the favorite subject of Greek artists. Greek sculptures tried to show ideal beauty in perfect human forms.